They've always been wrong about me. I get scared, but that is being human. And that's my greatest strength.
This isn't just a symbol. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, we can rise together.
So, the new Superman is finally out, ushering in not just a new era for the character, but a new era for DC on the screen in general. This movie marks the start of the DCU, helmed by Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn, and with it we finally end the previous universe of films under the title of the DCEU, which was primarily started by Zack Snyder back with Man of Steel.
He diminished, he's an immigrant, you know? It's an immigrant story in a lot of ways. And that was the thing I really felt strongly about.
And here we are, 12 years later, with a new Superman movie to usher in a new era of DC. Now, I've been pretty vocal about how excited I've been for this movie. I even made a video about it a few months back when the first trailer dropped, documenting how excited I was and how much that first trailer really just looked like a good Superman movie to me. So now that I've seen the film, did it meet my expectations? Was it as good as I was expecting it to be? Or does this mark a continuation of a DC film franchise that just can't quite get off the ground like it was? I think it's safe to say that DC over the last decade has been in a bit of a weird spot. Their films are polarizing, to say the least. While some people tend to really like them, a lot of people tend to not really like them. And for some, the way these characters were adapted over the last decade kind of turned them off from wanting to see films of them in general.
Kal-El, no!
As well as the fact that after Man of Steel, we never really got a true, proper Superman sequel, that left a lot of people in this state of just disinterest with the character. But how well does James Gunn's interpretation of the character pair against the last 10 years of DC? Well, honestly, pretty damn good.
Superman. He's not a man.
So first off, I'd like to just say that Superman 2025 is a really good Superman movie. And I really enjoyed it. Like, I had a great time from start to finish with the film, and I left the theater feeling really happy. I was in a good mood walking out of the cinema, and I love when a film does that for me. Though I do think the film does have some flaws here and there are some aspects of it that I might not be the biggest fan of, and I feel for some the movie might not be for everyone. I don't think it's as polarizing as Zack Snyder's take on the character, as I feel that definitely leaves a more sour taste in people's mouths, and Zack Snyder's films are very much more hit or miss. Whereas James Gunn makes films that can reach a wider audience in terms of enjoyment. They're a bit easier and lighter, and they have really good rewatchability. Now first I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the film without getting into spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film you can still enjoy this, and then I'm going to talk about some things that I feel I can't really talk about without getting into spoiler territory. So first off, how is the movie? Is it any good? Well, not surprising, as you've probably heard by now. Yeah, it's good. It's a fun movie. If you enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, I don't see why you wouldn't have a fun time with this. It feels like a breath of fresh air for the character, and it's a very entertaining and enjoyable summer blockbuster. The characters are all very intriguing and very likable, and Superman in this film is just pure joy to watch. The film honestly nailed Superman. His world, his characters, the tone of the comics that he's being adapted from, everything that you'd want is here. In some cases, a little bit too much. There is a lot in this film that I feel could have been maybe saved for the next one, but you will find enjoyment somewhere in this movie. The characters, like I said, are very entertaining. David Corenswet does an amazing job as Superman, bringing a new take on the character that really cements his version as something different than what we've seen before. Though you can see the hints of the previous Superman that walked in his boots. I primarily found a lot of Christopher Reeve in his performance, and in some ways some of Brandon Routh. This Superman is very friendly, and I felt like I could approach him. He didn't feel like some menacing godlike figure, but rather someone that just truly wants to do good and save everybody. Sometimes to a comical degree, and I honestly like that. There is a scene in this film that I'll get into in the spoiler section that just, it genuinely made me chuckle. And David Corenswet, I feel, fully embodies that core aspect of Superman just truly being good at heart. But that doesn't mean he's just a one-note character. Nope. this Superman does feel a whole range of emotions. From anger to fear, sadness, and even overwhelming amounts of joy, David Corenswet, I feel, nailed every aspect of what he needed to bring to the table as Superman. Though, I do wish we had seen a little bit more of his Clark Kent, but I understand that this film isn't super focused, get it, super, on the Clark Kent aspect, but more on the Superman aspect. Rachel Brosnahan does a fantastic job as Lois Lane. Honestly, she's one of my favorite interpretations of the character outside of the comics, and she did a really good job with every scene she was given, and her and David had really good chemistry. For the few scenes that they were together, though, I do wish, similar to Clark Kent, we had actually gotten a few more scenes of Lois and Clark just delving more into their relationship. I feel especially during the part of the film that they're on the farm with Clark's parents, I feel we could have used from a little bit more time having been spent there, especially with Clark and Lois. Though that's not something that fully detracts the film down in a negative way.
Who raised you as a child? I'll kill them too.
Nicholas Hoult also brought his all to his portrayal of Lex Luthor. While I don't know if this is my favorite portrayal yet, it's definitely one of the best Lexes we've seen. I do feel he's a little bit betrayed at times by the script. Some of his lines are really goofy and cheesy, and a lot of his other lines are extremely expository. I noticed a few points during scenes with him where the lines he was saying just were very obviously to explain things to the audience, and I don't feel it was done in a very natural way. Some of the lines felt a little bit heavy-handed. Though, that doesn't mean he does a bad job. Far from it. His Lex Luthor is pure just villain. He hates Superman, and you can feel it. But you can also feel that he put the time in to study this Superman to truly beat him. And I like how he didn't fully get rid of the whole real estate aspect of Lex Luthor. If you've seen the film, you'll know what I mean. But overall, he did a really good job, and there were a few scenes where he truly did feel intimidating. Although I have one problem with his character that I'll talk about in the spoiler section. For the rest of the characters, we didn't really focus on them too heavy. I feel primarily with the Justice Society, we didn't have a lot of scenes with them, and we didn't really have a lot of scenes to fully dive into who they were and them as a character. Mainly, we got that with Mr. Terrific, but I would have liked to see a little bit more of like Hawkgirl. I thought Isabella Marcé did a good job for the scene she was in, but I wish we kind of just gotten just a little bit more of her, you know? I think she did a good job, and I'm excited to see more of her in Peacemaker Season 2. Same goes for Guy Gardner. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. Nathan Fillion did a really good job with Guy Gardner, just fully encompassing his douchebaggery and the pure asshole nature that he's supposed to represent. And I feel like Nathan Fillion was like perfectly casted for that. And it was just really nice to see a Green Lantern on screen again. I mean, like really, when was the last time we truly just had a Green Lantern character outside of just a split-second cameo? It's been a while. But the standout of the Justice Society characters was easily Mr. Terrific. I think a lot of people are gonna go into this film and leave it a new fan of this character. I know I'm a new fan of Mr. Terrific. I want to see more of just what he can bring to the table. His one action scene was really cool, though I kind of wish we had gotten a bit more cinematography in it. It reminded me of the scene of Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy 2, though that one felt a lot more interesting visually because we're really moving around, where the one with Mr. Terrific was just kind of like the camera was spinning in a static spot, which I thought was cool, but could have been a little bit better. Still, he was a highlight in the film. I also want to mention, I really liked Crypto. Crypto was really good. I wasn't sure if I would love Crypto, as I was worried they were going to lean too much into him just being the goofy dog, but I feel like he was just the right amount of goofy dog, but also just pure dog. Like, he felt like my dog that I grew up with. I think anyone who's ever had a dog at one point in their life, they're gonna enjoy Crypto. I mean, if you don't, I guess, but like, he's just fun. So Superman 2025 is a good Superman film. It's action-packed, has just the right amount of comedy in my opinion, has a good emotional core to its center with the heart of the story, as well as just having really fun and endearing characters. Though I do believe in some aspects James Gunn did bite off more than he could chew. There is a lot going on in this film, and we do pick up right in the middle of a conflict. The film doesn't really start in like the origin, it skips all that, and we start in with a Superman that's already 3 years into being Superman. As well as we start after a fight has already happened, and after the conflict has already been going on in a way. For me, that kind of worked. I liked that. It felt like I was just jumping into an issue of Superman or into an episode of the animated series, but I can feel for some people that might not work as well, as it doesn't have a very cohesive, 3 act structure that you're used to in most films. It kind of just feels a little all over the place in that, and it's juggling a lot of things. Though the story isn't convoluted by any means. It's a simple story. It's just there's a lot of factors at play, and there's a lot of characters, and we're jumping around quite a bit. For some, that might be a negative that can detract their enjoyment of the film, but for me, it didn't really. I still was able to keep up with what was happening, and I found myself still enjoying everything that was going on from start to finish, though the film does take a little bit to really get going. The first 30 to 40 minutes of the film are a little rough, but once I feel it finds its footing, it really does find its footing, and if by that point you are engaged, yeah, the movie from that point on is just pure fun, like an episode of the animated series. I do feel, though, one of the reveals when it comes to some of the antagonists of the film just didn't really work for me, as well as some of the ideas it puts forth for Superman's origin. Just, I don't fully know how well those mesh with me, and I feel that the film introduced a lot of plot and a lot of different, subplots and things that we can branch off from, but not enough so that the film itself focuses on the things it's introducing. And in some ways, I feel like maybe a few of the reveals we got in this film could have been saved for further down the line, where we could have had a bit more build up to it and then focus more into it. Or if those are going to be introduced in the first film, at least have the film center around that and focus more on it, and not just introduce it and then quickly move on to the next thing you got to get to, because you got to get to the next set piece. And aside from that, those are really my only complaints with the film. I feel for everything it's trying to do, it's really solid, and it's a very entertaining Superman movie. I also just really love the speech that Superman gives at the end of the movie. I'm a sucker for Superman giving speeches. Heck, I used it at the beginning of my previous Superman video, and I feel that this is another entry into the Superman speech legacy that's just, it's really good. It had me like welling up. It was great. And in some ways, that speech did kind of feel like James Gunn speaking through Superman as the character to really declare that this one is different than the previous Superman. He's not going to be a dark, brooding, realistic take on the character. He's cheesy, he's goofy, he's silly, he's gonna make mistakes, but he's always going to be trying to do the right thing. That's what a good person would do. To really say that this Superman is going in a different approach, not in the way that the previous one was. Not to say that the previous one is bad, but just to say we're not doing that again. We're going in a different direction. And I like the direction that we're headed in. The goofy silliness of this movie reminded me of like the Sam Raimi era of Spider-Man films in the best way possible. It doesn't feel scared of embracing the fact that it is a comic book movie, that it's silly, and some of the things that it's adapting are kind of silly. They're kind of dumb. They're a little goofy. And to just embrace it. Have fun with it. Don't take yourself too seriously, and just enjoy the thing that you're making. So that's everything for my non-spoiler section of the video. The next few things I want to talk about, I'm gonna have to get into spoilers. So yeah, basic consensus, I enjoyed the film. It was fun. It's a really lighthearted film that has a good emotional core to it. Superman is a fun, entertaining character with a really good portrayal by David Corenswet, and a lot of the supporting cast, they do a good job supporting. Though I wish we would have seen a bit more of our supporting cast, and I feel that some of the ideas the film introduced could have been saved for later. It's a fun, good comic book summer action movie, and I don't see how anyone could leave the theater really having a bad time. It's fun. To give it just a typical number scale rating, I'd probably give it a 7.5 out of 10, leaning closer to an 8 out of 10 rather than a 6 out of 10. It was good. It's not perfect. I feel some of the screenplay and some of the pacing of the film could have been a bit better, as well as some more focus on certain characters and plot points, but none of that I feel really detracts from your overall enjoyment of the movie, and I think you'll have a great time, and it's a good start to a new DCU. I look forward to really seeing where they go from here. Okay, so now to talk about a few of the things I loved and a few of the things I didn't love without holding back on spoilers. So if you've seen the movie, keep watching. If you haven't and you just don't care, keep watching. But yeah, you've been warned. Okay, spoiler time. I'm gonna instantly jump into the thing that I didn't really like, or not so much that I didn't like, I just don't really know how I feel about it. And that's the change they're doing to Superman's origin. Well, not really a change. Some aspects of Superman coming from a potentially evil Krypton has been in the comics for a long time. Aspects of that was introduced in the 80s, and I know that the new Superman show, My Adventures with Superman, even tackled into the whole Kryptonians being evil and Clark actually being sent to Earth to conquer it. And that's something that Superman 2025 also tries to adapt as well. Now, my problem with it isn't fully in the concept of that. I mean, essentially it's just Superman is now a Viltrumite. He's basically just Omni-Man. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, as I feel just just makes the two characters a little bit too similar, though how it's executed is what can make them feel different in the approach to the concept of planet-conquering, strong, flying aliens. But, like I said, my biggest problem with it is mainly that the film doesn't really focus too much on it. It's not a big plot point, really. It's introduced, and we very quickly, have the public start to turn on Superman, and immediately they're like, fuck you, like, we don't like you, Superman, and it's like instant. It's an instant change. And I felt like that just felt really rushed. I mean, the reveal comes out of nowhere, and then instantly the public's perception is now they hate him. But then within 5 minutes, that's kind of gone. They've kind of forgotten and moved on from that, and by the end of the movie, whoo, all is well as ends well, we've moved on from it. And I didn't really like that. It felt like what would be a huge reveal, and the film should have focused on it a lot heavier than it did, and it just, it was, if you're gonna do that reveal, that needs to be much more focused. It needs to have more time put to it. We need to see how the characters really react to that, and we only get a little bit of it. I also feel like that reveal would have been better to save for further down the line. Think about it like this. What if in the first Superman movie, we as the audience are led to believe Clark was sent here to do good? He was sent here to be the protector. That's what we think. That's what at least he perceives he was sent here to do. And then maybe in the Supergirl movie or the next Superman movie, we reveal that actually no. Superman actually comes from a planet-conquering Krypton that sent him here to kill people, to rule over the planet. I feel like then we would have had a bit more build-up to it, and then it could have been a more consequential change to the status quo that this character is going to have to deal with. And I feel especially with the introduction of Supergirl in the end of the film, I now need to know, well, how does she deal with that? Okay, so Superman knows Supergirl. Does she know? Does she know that Kryptonians are supposed to be planet conquerors? Did he talk to her about it? We don't really know. And I feel like that should have been a bit more important, especially for how big of a reveal that is. But as for stuff that I did like, I said and mentioned in the review how I loved how Superman saved everyone, sometimes to an almost comical sense. I was mainly talking about the scene where he saves a squirrel. I fucking loved that. That genuinely made me chuckle, as it was just, yep, that's something Superman would do. He would 100% save a squirrel from getting crushed by a giant kaiju. And how he genuinely cared for the kaiju. Like, he was trying to beat it, yes, but he was trying to find a humane way to defeat it. He actually scolded Green Lantern for the way that he handled the situation, and I like that. It just showed that Superman genuinely cares about everybody, no matter how big or small, and even if they're the bad guy. I also really enjoyed the scene in the pocket dimension where Superman is sort of breaking out with the help of Metamorpho. I love how they just completely leaned into the whole wackiness of Metamorpho, having him turn into a cloud and a squid monster and literally just a jet where his legs were. Like, that's the pure comic book whimsicalness that I like about DC, and I'm happy to see that the films are now embracing. And the whole black hole sequence was really just beautiful. Visually, just a treat, though I wish it wasn't shown in the trailer. If that had been saved fully for the film, wow, I would have been blown away. But I saw that in the trailer a few months ago, and kind of takes away from that weight. Speaking of taking away the weight of a scene, Lex Luthor. I said I had one problem, big problem with him in the spoiler-free section, and that is what they do with him right at the very end with Crypto. While it was funny, yeah, I wasn't a fan of the way that right after the, the big speech and, Lex throwing it right back at Superman's face and getting right up in him, I'm thinking this is, we're gonna get that, that big face-to-face Lex Superman moment. Crypto just comes in and it turns purely into just comedy and slapstick, and he's getting, smashed around, and he's like, Crypto, no, don't do that. And I wasn't a fan of that. I feel like it fully took away the weight of that scene. I just wish that, the film didn't do things like that. I also wish the film had let some scenes breathe a little bit more. The one instance that really stuck out to me was at the beginning of the film when Lex is having a conversation with, the government about, what they should do with Superman, and, this is the scene where he first tries and then, they don't go with him, which causes him to then take drastic measures. Well, continue taking further drastic measures. And that scene is in a lot of superhero comic book movies. I mean, it's in most films. It's how you set your antagonist up. And I feel at the end of that scene when they say no to him, the camera pans on him for a split second, then we cut straight to the next scene. And I felt like that should have breathed just a bit longer, really hold on our villain that this is gonna push them to do bad things. This is, the inciting incident that's now gonna push his plot forward. And there were a lot of instances of that where the film just really was trying to rush to the next thing and didn't sit with some things as long as I would have liked them to. People have also been talking about how this Superman feels very weak, and honestly, after watching the movie, I can kind of see where you're coming from. Yeah, this Superman isn't all powerful and just instant winning every fight he's in, but if you've read many Superman comics or seen seen any of his animated shows, you would know that's pretty accurate. I mean, Superman, while yes, has the strength to basically one-hit most people he goes up against, he chooses not to do that. He prefers to not have to resort to fists all the time, like just go right to fighting and beating the hell out of the guy. And so that does tend to have Superman get his ass kicked a lot in comics. Also, the fact that, you know, Superman has overwhelming strength, so he doesn't really know how to fight properly. And if you put someone up against him who genuinely knows how to fight, especially knows his moveset, yeah, he's gonna get the floor wiped with him. Like, that's, and I'm okay with that. It showed that, you know, he isn't an all-powerful Superman. He can still get beaten. Plus, he wasn't like getting beaten by just like any old villain. He was getting beaten by LexCorp villains who are literally designed and built to fight Superman. Like, Lex studied and designed these people to specifically go up against Superman. So I'm not surprised that they're able to hold their own. And I mean, it makes the action scenes just feel better because you know that this Superman isn't just always, you know, instantly able to win. There are stakes. You know, he can be put on the ropes and he's got to kind of think his way out of it. I love the scene with the engineers, like Powers, you know, filling up his lungs and he was, you know, trying to rip the fucking things out. And then he just fucking shoots up into the sky. Loved that. CGI in that scene also looked really good, I must say. I really liked it. It looked great. Though that leads me into one of my big negatives I talked about in the spoiler-free section, which is one of the villain reveals, and that's Ultraman. Now, we all knew going into this film who Ultraman was. Everyone who's a Superman fan, anyone who's a comic book fan, I think we all knew who Ultraman was gonna be. That reveal was not surprising to anyone who had put 2 seconds of thought into it. It was obviously going to be a Bizarro clone of Superman. I was calling that very early on. And it was. It was a clone of Superman that kind of felt like a Bizarro, sort of, not really, kind of, eh. And again, similar to the Kryptonian parent reveal, I feel like more time should have been spent on that. It just happens and then is very quickly just moved on from with very little put to it. And yeah, like, I mean, Lex can now clone Superman. That's a big deal. Shouldn't we put, you know, a bit more of the film's focus to that? No, because we have 700 other things we need to focus on. So I wasn't a huge fan of that. Overall, those are my thoughts and opinions on Superman 2025. Like I said, I really liked it. I thought it did everything that I was expecting it to do. And for what it was trying to be, which is just a fun, entertaining Superman summer comic action film, God, that's a mouthful. I think it really nailed it. As a Superman fan, I felt satisfied. It's the Superman film I have been wanting pretty much my whole life. It felt more in line with the Richard Donner films and the Christopher Reeve era, as well as the animated Superman series from the 90s and from my childhood, and just, yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it. It does have its problems, but I don't think those problems are really going to outweigh the positives that the film has put forth, and I feel a lot of people are going to have a fun time with this movie. I look forward to whatever James Gunn does next. I am excited for where this DCU can head from here on out. I am more interested in this than Marvel. Can't believe I'm saying that. If you were to go back 10 years ago and tell me that I'd be more interested in where DC films are going than the MCU, I would have been shocked. I would not have believed you. But here we are. The DCU seems to be more exciting and more entertaining and comic booky than what the MCU is giving us, and I honestly have more faith in this than whatever Marvel's doing right now. But how do you feel? Have you seen it? Did you go and watch Superman in its first week? What are your thoughts? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Let me know down below. I'm really excited to hear what everyone thinks. I really want to thank you guys for the love that you gave on the last Superman video. That was crazy. I couldn't believe that did as well as it did. And yeah, I'm really happy everyone enjoyed it. And if you like this video, why not like, comment, and subscribe? It really helps a lot, and it's fun to know that people enjoy watching these videos. Anyway, my name is Touche. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
It's the dreaded Doomsday, the most fearsome force in the universe. Even Doomsday learned you don't mess with the S. Superman figures each sold separately, blocks not included.